Do you know what could possibly be the biggest risk that we face potentially moving forward here?
As a country, as people, give me
Yeah,
more.
sure. It's interesting. I read comments on my channel. I read comments on your channel.
Hmm.
I read comments on other channels that I am a administrator or moderator for, manager. And one of the comments is we or I, as a commenter, states, I really like your content because it doesn't imply any impending doom or at least anything that is possibly likely to wipe us out immediately, having seen this content for numerous years, only to realize that, now today it is becoming a problem. Whereas when the content was created, it wasn't really that urgent if it took 10 years for it to come to fruition. And I am not by any means trying to do that with what we're going to discuss today, but this is likely a potential threat to our future, our finances, our money, the economy, and the strength of our nation overall.
Okay.
Do you know what that might be?
I'm going to say money because that generally is the most important aspect of all of it.
Depending on whose content you may have seen up until this point, the death of the dollar being wiped out, the dollar being destroyed, de-dollarization, BRICS wiping out the dollar, China, Russia, and other countries all working together with a unified front mission, objective, goal, agenda to pull away from the dollar.
Meaning not wipe it out because we here in the United States and America, we would still use the dollar. But what they're saying is, because I have no idea what you're about to talk about, but what they're saying is so that the dollar isn't the main global money.
The world reserve currency. Think about it like this. Let's break it down to a basic, it's to USD to peso conversion, okay? And I would think that a lot of people are familiar with this conversion, okay? Maybe some may be familiar with a Bahamian conversion, but oftentimes when you travel on a cruise, they'll just keep using dollars. You won't exchange. And even in Mexico, even in Mexican countries, or sorry, when traveling in Mexico, in South America,
South American countries.
you will still probably just use dollars. They may make change in pesos, which just further complicates and confuses people on purpose.
I do remember when the first time we went to Mexico, they liked that we tipped them in American dollars versus the peso.
Yeah, variety of reasons. Perhaps maybe because the peso could at any point in time be further devalued.
Whereas the American dollar held its value.
Correct.
Okay.
At the time.
At the time.
Now, as I pull this up, the peso conversion rate is 18.25 pesos to the dollar.
I don't remember what it was the last time we did a conversion at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport before we went to Cancun.
All right. I remember a number being 20. It's just a number in my head.
Okay.
It was a simple, easy math. 20 pesos to a dollar.
Okay.
I remember that at some point in time. So let's just think about it. Let's just say for 20 pesos, you could buy a drink. Let's just say you could buy a Coca-Cola in Mexico for 20 pesos.
Okay.
It would have cost you $1. And then, if you take that Coca-Cola across the border here in the United States, you can go to try to sell it. You could probably sell it for $1. Right? Okay. Well, here's the problem. The peso is now $18.25 to the dollar. So you'd actually have to spend more than $1 US to buy that 20 peso Coca-Cola to then bring it back to the States to try to sell it for $1. When other countries devalue the dollar, it weakens the dollar and the ability to make purchases with the dollar, only to bring it back to the United States to then reconvert it as the tangible good, the widget or whatever it may be.
Maybe I don't understand, but isn't 18.25 less than 20? So wouldn't you be able to get more for your American dollar now?
No, not necessarily. Because $1 is equal to 18.25. But that same 20 peso soda, Coca-Cola, whatever it may be, it's still 20 pesos. So your $1 no longer gets you 20 pesos.
Okay. There we go. It takes me a second
So it'll take you like $1 and let's just say if I wanted to get 20 pesos, it's going to be some crazy math. But if we wanted 20 pesos currently, it would be $1.10.
Okay, that makes sense.
Let's just say inflation is 10%.
Okay.
But it's not necessarily inflation. It's a devaluation of the dollar according to Mexican standards. So we have to think about this when BRICS, which we've already discussed what BRICS is. BRICS is a acronym for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Most importantly, China. So with most of the goods that we buy and or receive as an end user through Walmart, through Amazon, through Target, through a variety of different sources, anybody using Wish or Temu or any of these. Shine. It's mostly coming from China. Therefore, when China deems the dollar to be worth less, it takes more dollars to buy goods from China, only to bring them here to the United States for them to cost even more.
Okay. I get it. It makes more sense now. So our inflation that we've had the last couple of years that is going to suck, it's now going to get worse.
We're going to have inflation plus.
Okay.
It's inflation plus devaluation.
I was about to say, that sounds like a full-on crapshoot.
It's inflation plus the devaluation. BRICS nations developing new currency as quest for global de-dollarization accelerates. But yet there is a much, much bigger problem here, folks. And it is that China and Brazil recently finalized a trade deal in their own currencies, completely bypassing the dollar. But that's not that's not the only bad news for the world reserve currency or previous world reserve currency. Because think about it like this. They're now using their own. They could completely isolate us out and say, no, we don't accept the dollar. The dollar that we are worried about being worth less or worthless here could potentially be worthless everywhere else, which would be a much bigger problem.
I was about to say, much bigger problem, but it still comes into play though. So I guess I don't understand I understand that it being devalued makes things more expensive everywhere you go, but you can still, I guess not. So I was going to say you could still go to other places and trade in your American money or whatever for their money. But if they've devalued it to the point where they won't accept it, you can't even make a trade.
Well, they may not necessarily completely deny, but it could be the instance of a wheelbarrow worth of cash to buy a loaf of bread.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. So look, here's my thought process on this. How many people from Mexico are
I was using Mexico as an easy reference for people.
I'm going to use Mexico as an easy reference. A lot of people travel to Mexico for vacations, to go to Cancun, to go to the other places at Cabo and things like that. Or to get kidnapped, or to get tequila.
Or to meet the cartel.
Or however, or drugs, whatever.
Or to get a cheap discount on surgery.
Because that's been happening a lot. But a lot of people from numerous countries travel to Mexico, right? How many people from Mexico travel to Switzerland, travel to Italy, travel to the United States? Shut up.
9.
Okay. But what I'm trying to say is, don't make me forget what I was saying.
Okay. We go there for vacation.
So the point, why would you devalue the American dollar when Americans are the ones who travel more places than people in other places travel? I think that's how I'm trying to phrase it. How many Russians go, listen, this may be me generalizing because I honestly am not sure. So if you know answers, tell me. But how many people in Russia get to go travel here? How many people in China get to go travel?
They didn't devalue the peso. Okay?
Okay.
This is all what the dollar is weighted against the peso. Now, the peso, if converted to Chinese yuan for the time being, which could potentially be a digital yuan or digital ruble in Russia, they're going to have their own conversion rates. It's all independent.
That's fine. But what I'm saying is if you make it so the American dollar holds no weight literally anywhere and you can't change it out for anywhere, you've just shot yourself in the foot as every other country for traveling.
Negative. You got to understand. Let's break this down again. BRICS.
Brazil, Russia,
Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South
Africa.
Africa. Brazil may be an outlier. Russia, India, China, and South Africa. South Africa, maybe, but they're not huge tourist destinations. This is a fight. This is a pushback against sanctions. This is more to do with a Cold War than tourism.
Well, I'm not worried about that. You said a global wipeout of the American dollar. So that's where my thought went. If these five, BRICS, if these five are able to convince
Four.
Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, that's five. If these five are able to
4.5.
if they're able to make it so that they just devalue the American dollar completely and for somehow, some way get other countries on board, that would stop American tourism to other countries.
Other countries have their own currency.
True, but if they won't take Americans' currency to trade in for their currency, Americans can't travel there.
I don't think, again, this is...
Is that not how that works?
Yeah, but I don't think that this has anything to do with tourism, and this is more of a power play.
Same thing, tourism, buying parts from there, having your business done there, like...
Right, but even still, with sanctions imposed, they're not conducting business, or they theoretically shouldn't be conducting business anyway, as it is. So they're not really missing out on anything. Like at this point in time, Russia, we shouldn't be engaging in trade with Russia. So whether they lose the dollar or not, they've already lost it.
Well, China won't do it then because China gets so much from us that it's ridiculous. Just as like we get so much from them.
This is a power play. And they've already done it. They are doing it. Okay? But here's the other thing, is that I'm not sure if Joe isn't working for the Chinese. I don't know that. See what I'm saying? Last week, a Russian official announced that the BRICS nations are working to develop a new currency, yet another sign that dollar dominance is waning. And I'm not saying that they're going to completely wipe it out, but I am saying that they are trying to move away from the dollar as the world reserve currency. They are moving towards a central bank digital currency, and the central bank is odds are is going to be centered around the BRICS. But there's more to the story. State Duma, the Russian Legislative Assembly Deputy Chairman Alexander Babakov said that the transition to settlements in national currencies is the first step. We've already seen this occur with recent oil deals between India and Russia, settled in currencies other than the dollar. Quote unquote, the next one is to provide the circulation of digital or any other form of a fundamentally new currency in the nearest future. And I think that at the BRICS Leaders Summit, the readiness to realize this project will be announced. Such works are underway. That summit is scheduled for August, so mark your calendar. Babakov said that the BRICS nations are developing a strategy that does not defend the dollar or the euro, and that a single currency would likely emerge within BRICS pegged to gold or other groups of products, rare earth elements, or soil. That is quite possibly the most important message being relayed here, as they are looking to pull away from the dollar, which is already almost committed suicide itself, as it literally has no backing and can be manipulated and controlled by the Federal Reserve, with the printing of money that is just digital ones and zeros. Instead, they're saying, you know what? We're gonna put forth initiatives to introduce our own currency, BRICS currency, digital dollars, and we're gonna back it. This fragile mental construct of the fractional reserve banking system that we have exploited to no end, of extreme debts that we have no intention of ever repaying, while using this as a tool of leverage against other countries in a Cold War. They literally just gave us the middle finger. Collectively, 5 middle fingers, or 4. Which one? BRICS undermine dollar hegemony, hedge. I can't say the word. With gold purchases. I can't say it. Hegemony. Can you hedge? I can't say it. They have been buying gold, and I've been telling you guys about this for months. They've been buying gold as a means of pegging it to their new current. What are you laughing at? What are you laughing at?
You and the sip you took and the way you relished in the flavor before you swallowed it.
It had legs. It had legs.
It's funnier from the side over here.
How to drink whiskey like a sir.
Then I'll throw it over your shoulder. That's my face it's going to go in.
It's clear. That's what she said. It's clear that many countries are trying to minimize their exposure to the dollar. Many countries. It is a virus. It is a parasite. It is on the decline, which is why I continuously stress diversity, security, and cash flow, because the dollar is on the decline and that the downfall. However, assets will be assets. Mm-hmm. That bottle of Coca-Cola is still a bottle of Coca-Cola.
Exactly.
I would much rather, there will come a point in time where I would much rather have a bottle of Coca-Cola than I would rather have a dollar.
Yep. Understandable.
Confidence in the greenback continues to erode thanks to the profligate borrowing, spending, and money creation by the U.S. government. America's use of the dollar as a foreign policy weapon also makes many countries wary of relying solely on dollars. You know, you would think that they would have thought of that when using it as a weapon, as a tool, a divisive strategy to control other countries, for which they have obviously stated currently that they don't really give a crap. Ukraine. When you think about Ukraine, we don't send them money.
We send them ways to fight. We
send them resources that are much more valuable because the dollar isn't.
No, we sent them money too.
Right. But tanks, helicopters, ammunition, weapons, training, far more valuable than money.
Yeah, I fully agree.
And then you use this, you try to throw your weight around with it and then further devalue it. It would be like trying to threaten a kid with a whooping, with a belt that now is an elastic waistband. Like it's not the same.
You lose the scare factor.
Side note, we don't whoop your kids, so don't whoop ours. According to the International Monetary Fund.
What?
I was waiting for you to say something. IMF. The dollar's share of global foreign exchange reserves fell below 59% at the end of 2021, extending a 2-decade decline. Quote unquote, shrinkingly, the decline in the dollar's share has not been accompanied by an increase in the shares of the pound sterling, yen, and euro, other long-standing reserve currencies. Rather, the shift out of dollars has been in two directions. A quarter into the Chinese renminbi and 3/4 into the currencies of smaller countries that have played a more limited role as a reserve currency. This is a big problem for the U.S. government. Uncle Sam depends on the demand for dollars to underpin its profligate borrowing and spending. The only reason the U.S. can get away with massive budget deficits and ever-growing national debt to the extent that it does is due to the dollar's role as the world's reserve currency. It creates a built-in global demand for dollars and U.S. treasuries that absorb the money creation and maintain dollar strength. But what happens if the demand drops? What happens if BRICS develops its own currency and no longer needs dollars to trade? What happens if one of the best-selling most desired vehicles in the country drops in sales. Well, Elon Musk slashes prices on Teslas. That's what happens. And they become less valuable. So I will ask the question again. But what happens if the demand drops? What happens if BRICS develops its own currency and no longer needs dollars to trade?
Dollars become less valuable.
If the demand for dollars tanks, the greenback's value will quickly erode away. That means even worse price inflation for Americans, as I explained earlier. The inflation won't necessarily come from any control of the Fed. It will come from the cost of acquiring materials, goods, raw materials, widgets, products, services from other countries. Mm-hmm. Energy being a huge driving factor here. Petroleum. Before we get to electric power. And in the worst case scenario, it could collapse the dollar completely. I don't think it's so much of a climate change, green, renewable energy push, more so than we done pissed off every other country in the world that produces crude oil, and we need to switch all our cars to electric.
That makes a lot of sense right now.
The worst case scenario, it could collapse the dollar completely. So here's the deal, folks. When we say stock up, it really almost now translates to get the most out of your money while you can. Mm-hmm. It's not stockpile your pantry full of food and necessities because we are potentially going to face famine and starvation or a nuclear war. These other countries, specifically those in BRICS and looking to utilize the new currency produced by BRICS, are going to fight us without ever having to engage in physical combat.
Without ever having to lift a finger. It's terrifying, actually.
You know what'll be worse?
Please tell.
Just think. In this country, the dollar is devalued globally. Mm-hmm. It almost implodes and collapses from the inside out. Mm-hmm. We'll fight each other before we fight them.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
We'll fight each other before we fight them, and we'll put it on TikTok so they'll know just how effective they have been.
It'll go right to their hub because it is a Chinese app.
Fast and Furious 6, I believe.
That's the one where Hobbs comes in.
So, Deckard Shaw says, you were never in the game.
Mm-hmm. That is true.
You were never in the game. And we've got Joe at the wheel, at the helm. Say what you want about Trump. I'm not promoting Trump, but I am saying that I don't think that we would quite be where we are today.
Now, on the flip side, you'll have others.
This particular topic of discussion.
You'll have others saying that we are here because of what started when Trump was in office. So it all depends on how you look at it and how you want to look at it, I guess.
Would he have finished the fight?
Honestly, I have no idea. Because he's a businessman. He's not a military man. He's a businessman. He probably would have found a way to make everybody happy, but... No,
God, no. He would have never found a way to make everybody happy. No.
Us less, them more. Himself most.
Oh, I thought you meant everybody here in America. Oh.
No.
Look, he, in my opinion, would have devised a way to bankrupt this country in a way that would have saved it.
Like he does all his businesses.
Exactly.
Because he's a businessman.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. That's what I said.
He would have stepped on some people. He would have pissed some people off. But at the end of the day, we collectively would have been safe from an economic disaster, potentially globally. We may not have necessarily been safe from a disaster amongst people socially.
Technically, you say economic, I'm sticking with economic. The economic disaster started in 2020. That's where it started, and it has quickly spiraled from there in numerous directions to where we are now.
Why?
C-19.
Okay.
The lockdown.
So if he had his way with how we would have managed that, it wouldn't have aligned with Fauci. It wouldn't have aligned with who? It wouldn't have aligned with WEF, right? You see what I'm saying? Sure, it technically started then. He was in office at that time. But although he said some really ridiculous things, like the whole bleach thing, that was crazy. That was unreal.
Out there.
I think he would have taken the approach of, you know what? Why don't everybody just go ahead and try to get sick? Get it over with. Let the chips fall where they may. Instead,
here we are.
And Fauci retired. Wealthy. Extremely wealthy.
Extremely wealthy.
And on that bombshell,
Now I gotta go watch some Jeremy Clarkson.
I bid you an adieu.
What is that street thing? It's not gonna turn off from there. Cheers.